the top.
Right.
Yeah, like the closest thing that I can think of having seen the film now
had to do with, the brilliance of Blake Lively and being able to act with this power.
Blake Lively has stepped into dangerous territory, one that very few in Hollywood would ever dare to tread. New revelations suggest she may have been behind the leak of confidential Sony HR complaints targeting her co-star, Justin Baldoni. What looked like a calculated move to derail his career is now being called a stunning miscalculation that has spun out of control. Instead of damaging Baldoni, the move has sparked intense backlash, placing Lively at the center of a storm she never anticipated. Industry insiders say that by allegedly releasing private HR records in an effort to strengthen her claims, she crossed a boundary that has left her own credibility in question. What she likely intended as a decisive strike against Justin has instead become the spark for Hollywood's latest scandal. Baldoni, far from crumbling under the weight of the accusations, is now using the moment to his advantage. Armed with documentation that appears to support his innocence and undermine the claims against him, he's flipping the script, recasting himself as the target of an attempted takedown while re-emerging with his reputation intact, perhaps even stronger than before. What started as an internal workplace issue has snowballed into a headline-grabbing media spectacle, one raising tough questions about betrayal, ambition, and the risks of weaponizing sensitive complaints. As whispers grow louder and the fallout spreads, the once carefully planned strike seems to be transforming into Blake's most damaging misstep. And in the chaos, Justin Baldoni is positioning himself not just as a survivor, but as the unexpected victor.
Co-stars. Friedman insists the truth is in those documents and that Blake Lively is the one who used her power and
firestorm surrounding the leaked HR files tied to Justin Baldoni has taken another stunning turn. Fresh allegations claim that multiple complaints were lodged with Sony Pictures during the filming of It Ends With Us, accusing Baldoni of inappropriate behavior. At first glance, the documents seemed to bolster Blake Lively's claims of a toxic set environment. But almost immediately, Baldoni's camp pushed back, calling the reports a staged smear campaign allegedly engineered by Blake's team, an accusation her publicist quickly dismissed. Yet the inconsistencies are impossible to ignore. If these complaints were genuine, why weren't they cited in Blake's official filings against Baldoni? That glaring omission has fueled skepticism, especially since the documents appeared out of nowhere on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, spreading just as Blake was preparing to launch a fresh lawsuit. The timing was so uncanny that many believe the leak was a deliberate ploy to sway public opinion. The sourcing only deepened doubts. Rumors suggested the files came from a friend of someone who knew a Sony employee, a trail so flimsy it practically screams inside job. And anyone with knowledge of HR protocol knows legitimate complaints remain sealed within corporate channels. They don't randomly surface on social media, making the leak look far more like a calculated weapon than a whistleblower's disclosure. Sony didn't waste time putting the rumors to rest. In an unequivocal statement to Variety, the studio confirmed it had no record of any complaints filed against Baldoni, flatly denying the documents were real. That revelation raised enormous red flags, prompting speculation that the files were either stolen and tampered with or fabricated altogether. Either scenario carries explosive consequences. If Blake or her camp had any role in leaking or inventing HR records, legal experts warn it could cross from unethical to criminal, violating privacy laws, breaching corporate confidentiality, and potentially amounting to fraud or defamation. Already, insiders report that Sony is scrutinizing the situation closely. The studio has little tolerance for breaches of sensitive information, and whispers suggest that Blake may soon face serious legal and professional fallout. Meanwhile, Baldoni's team has seized on Sony's official denial, reframing the leak not as evidence of misconduct, but as proof of an orchestrated attack designed to destroy him. Blake's credibility took another hit when analysts noticed the documents had every date blacked out, an unusual redaction that makes it impossible to verify whether the complaints were ever filed at all. As Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, pointed out, the missing dates are not just sloppy, they appear intentional, designed to shield fabrication from scrutiny. He labeled the leak a calculated setup and vowed to investigate who was behind it, signaling that Baldoni's side is now on the offensive and the counterattack has been fierce. Every time Blake has escalated with fresh accusations, Baldoni has met her with receipts, hard proof that dismantles her claims. One key example came from her allegation that he made unwanted advances during a rehearsal. His team responded with behind-the-scenes video, showing the two joking casually, Blake teasing about spray tan smudges, Justin laughing and playing along. Far from predatory, the footage painted an entirely different picture than her legal filings described. The dispute has spilled far beyond court filings and into the public square. Major outlets have dissected each twist, while Hollywood insiders whisper about how badly this saga could backfire on Blake. What began as an attempt to cast Baldoni as unprofessional and toxic now risks cementing her as manipulative and reckless. Studios and producers, wary of controversy, are reportedly rethinking their willingness to attach projects to her name. The drama escalated further when the New York Times published a major investigative piece echoing Blake's allegations. Instead of crippling Baldoni, it triggered his boldest move yet, a $250 million defamation lawsuit against the paper. He accused the Times of selectively editing communications to portray him in the worst light. Risky though it was, the lawsuit sent a clear signal he wasn't hiding. He was fighting head-on. And in the court of public opinion, it bolstered his image as someone confident in his innocence. Then came another bombshell. An audio clip leaked online of Justin apologizing to Blake in private. Her supporters framed it as a confession. But once context surfaced, it unraveled. The apology was about a minor disagreement over script changes, not harassment. What should have been a trivial moment was weaponized into a damning soundbite. To Baldoni's defenders, it was further proof that private conversations were being manipulated to smear him. As the feud drags on, Blake's position grows increasingly fragile. Each leak, each suspiciously timed revelation, has backfired. Even her red carpet appearances alongside Ryan Reynolds, meant to show strength, only reminded audiences of the scandal that refuses to fade. What was intended as a devastating strike against Justin Baldoni now looks more like a self-inflicted disaster. By leaning on questionable leaks and shaky accusations, Blake has shifted the spotlight from his alleged misconduct to her own tactics. Instead of dismantling his career, she may have ignited her own worst crisis, leaving Hollywood and the public questioning her motives, her methods, and the true story behind one of the industry's most volatile battles.
You know, the brilliance of Blake Lively and being able to act with this powerhouse and
what was meant to be light-hearted humor at the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary celebration has instead deepened the controversy. Ryan Reynolds' offhand joke about his wife's involvement in the scandal drew sharp criticism across Hollywood. Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, didn't mince words, calling the remark surprising and distasteful, a sentiment that quickly echoed through industry circles. What should have been a playful moment instead came across as tone-deaf, leaving many to question whether Blake and Ryan were trying to minimize a serious legal fight with casual banter. But the fallout from that joke was only the beginning. Behind the scenes, Baldoni was preparing a staggering counterstrike, a $400 million countersuit not only against Blake Lively but also against Ryan Reynolds. The lawsuit accuses the couple of defamation and, more explosively, civil extortion. In plain terms, Baldoni claims they attempted to pressure him with false allegations, essentially saying, "Cooperate or we'll go public with these complaints." If a court finds even partial truth in that accusation, the legal consequences for Blake and Ryan could be catastrophic. The dangers stretch even further. If evidence shows Blake orchestrated the Sony HR leak or worse, fabricated details within those documents, she could face sanctions or even criminal charges. Already, speculation is growing that Sony may be forced to investigate whether one of its own employees provided access to the records. If that trail leads anywhere close to Blake's camp, the fallout could extend beyond lawsuits to firings, financial penalties, and potential exposure to fraud claims. What started as Blake's bold strike against Baldoni has now spiraled into a chain reaction threatening to consume her entire career. Through it all, Justin Baldoni has quietly but steadily regained control of the narrative. From the beginning, he has positioned himself as a man determined to clear his name, and the mounting evidence appears to support him. Friedman has been methodical in tearing down Blake's amended complaints, which now reference unnamed actresses and fresh accusations. He argues these claims amount to little more than hearsay propped up by anonymous sources. The problem for Blake is glaring. Aside from her own testimony, no one has stepped forward publicly to corroborate her allegations. Even the two women she cites remain unnamed, while Sony has gone on record confirming it has no documentation of any complaints against Baldoni. The only time such grievances appeared was through Blake's filings and the questionable leaks, not through proper HR channels. That lack of transparency has weakened her credibility day by day, while Baldoni's side continues to dismantle the idea that his production company, Wayfarer, orchestrated a smear campaign. According to Friedman, the company simply responded to media inquiries with factual evidence, directly contradicting Blake's narrative. By contrast, her team appears consumed with planting stories and feeding carefully timed narratives into the press, a strategy that now looks less like advocacy and more like manipulation. The power dynamic has shifted dramatically. Baldoni is no longer fending off accusations, he is charging forward. With a $400 million lawsuit in motion, a public website detailing his side of the story, and even a judge imposing restrictions on Blake's PR tactics, he is projecting transparency and strength. Blake, meanwhile, appears increasingly boxed in, relying on leaks, secret texts, and shadowy backchannel efforts. The contrast is striking. Baldoni is fighting openly, with evidence and legal filings on display. Blake is fighting from the shadows, through leaks and rumor. And that contrast may be the very factor reshaping this battle, not only in the courtroom, but in the court of public opinion.
We take off her socks?
Yeah.
For some reason, she doesn't have her sh for socks. She has a C for socks.
Every time Blake lively attempts a gotcha moment, whether through leaked HR documents or a conveniently timed audio clip, it unravels almost instantly. Instead of damaging Justin Baldoni, each move collapses under scrutiny, leaving her looking more deceptive and less credible. What she hoped would be career-ending revelations have instead become self-inflicted wounds, eroding her standing in both the courtroom and the public eye. The strategy has backfired so spectacularly that observers now describe her efforts not as bold, but reckless. By trying to weaponize confidential complaints, Blake may have committed the fatal misstep that dismantled her case from the inside out. Rather than exposing Justin as she intended, she exposed her own desperation, revealing a willingness to bend rules, skirt ethics, and possibly break the law in pursuit of revenge. Any moral authority she once claimed has evaporated. In the court of public opinion, her reputation is collapsing faster than the lawsuit she filed. Justin Baldoni, by contrast, has emerged steadier with each passing twist. Where Blake has relied on leaks and innuendo, he has met every allegation head-on with hard evidence. Behind-the-scenes footage, documented records, and swift legal filings have painted him not as an aggressor, but as the target of a calculated smear campaign. His calm transparency and refusal to retreat into silence have earned him sympathy, even admiration. Instead of looking cornered, he looks resilient. Instead of appearing defensive, he projects strength. The contrast between the two could not be starker. Blake set out to destroy Baldoni's career, but it is her own credibility that now hangs by a thread. Industry insiders who once wondered if Justin's future was in jeopardy are instead watching Blake's carefully cultivated image unravel in real time. Once viewed as a savvy star and Hollywood power player, she is now described in whispers as manipulative, isolated, and dangerously out of step with the truth. The legal war is far from finished, but the balance of power has already shifted. Baldoni's countersuit grows more formidable with every revelation, while Blake's filings weaken under the weight of contradictions. His reputation, far from being ruined, appears burnished, strengthened by his refusal to be scapegoated or intimidated. What began as an attempt to portray him as toxic has instead transformed him into a figure of resilience. The deeper lesson resonates far beyond this feud. In Hollywood and in any arena, vindictive tactics carry heavy risks. What you set out to destroy may ultimately consume you. Blake Lively's smear campaign has imploded, leaving her reputation in tatters. Justin Baldoni not only defended himself, he flipped the narrative entirely, exposing deception and standing taller than before. The takeaway is simple, but undeniable: truth endures, while lies collapse under their own weight. Blake is learning that lesson the hard way. Justin, meanwhile, walks away with his career and his credibility shining brighter than ever.